right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. You can call us at 412-575-2600. We'll be with you until 11 o'clock. Bob Pompeani here. Chris Mueller is there at 93.7 The Fan, PM team. And tonight, for a change, we saw some offense. The Pirates, Chris, can only collect 10 hits collectively and 3 losses to the Reds. They came home tonight. Paul Skeens on the mound, so he didn't get a lot of run support in his first 3, got a lot tonight, and they end up winning 10-3, your final score. So it was not a good game in the sense that there were 4 Pirate errors in this game, but somehow the hitting made you forget about all that.
They're such a sloppy team. I know I shouldn't be saying that after they win going away and they triple up the opponent, but they are just so bad at so many positions in the field. Skeens with errors. O'Neal Cruz just continues to look extremely uncomfortable and unpolished in center field. Ke'Bryan Hayes has ball going off his glove. It's just, I don't know, like, it's good that Paul Skeens pitched well and kind of got back to more of the Skeens we're used to. Only 1 earned in his 6 innings, and he struck out a guy an inning. But, I mean, does anybody really think that this team has turned any kind of corner after one game like this? I think it was just the bats waking up against a pretty bad opponent. Yeah,
I would agree with that, but I also think this is a pretty big homestand for them, specifically Derek Shelton, given the fact that there are a lot of people who are thinking he could be on a very hot seat right now. But if he is, I would think Ben Cherington also is. But if they have a successful homestand, they have 7 this week coming up. Let's say they go 5-2 and even 6-1, which I don't see happening. But if that happens, do you think it changes anything with how Bob Nutting oversees and thinks about what he should do with those guys?
If they go 6-1 and they end the homestand 11-12 overall, and having crawled back into sort of the mushy middle of Major League Baseball in general record-wise, then sure, it'll turn down the heat a little bit. Like if you have a pot on blast on the stove and then the instructions say, all right, turn the heat to low and let it simmer, that's what it's going to do. But if the flip side happens here, Bob, and say they only win 1 more game on this homestand and go 2-5, I don't know what Bob Nutting is going to do, but I would fire both my general manager and my manager midstream. Definitely my field manager. I don't really know why you can't do both, but I'll go back to saying what I said after last season. I would have let them both go. I think Bob Nutting was ready to let them both go, and somebody within that organization, I don't know who, Travis Williams would almost be the only high-ranking person left who could say this, I think talked him off of it. But I think Bob's instinct after last season, if it was in fact to fire his GM and his manager, was the correct one, and I wish that he had followed it.
412-575-2600 is the number to call. Also, I want to talk about the most watched event yesterday and over the weekend was the Masters, and maybe one of the most riveting Masters in quite some time. Almost 13 million people watched it in this country, and man, it was riveting to watch Rory McIlroy go through all the machinations, the ups and the downs in one round alone. He got a little conservative on 13, took a double bogey when he didn't really have to do that, but he fought back. And then I thought it was Justin Rose, who has never won one of these. He's come close before. The only guy, aside from Ben Hogan, to lose 2 playoffs now down there at Augusta. But I think with McIlroy, and I'd like to get your take on this, this is such a big burden that he has finally, shrugged off his shoulders. He doesn't have to worry about this. It's a career Grand Slam. I think that makes him even more dangerous moving forward. They have the PGA at Quail Hollow, where he's won 4 times. Oakmont sets up for a guy who knows how to drive it long and straight. I mean, we could be looking at something historic here.
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I've done the same sort of look ahead to the courses. And then the Open Championship is in Northern Ireland again at what, a Royal Portrush show. I can never say that one.
That's a hard one.
Why can't I just say Portrush? No, I mean, Quail Hollow might as well be like the house that Rory built. I don't think that's anything special as a golf course. It's certainly not an iconic place, but he dominates there. You said it best about Oakmont. If you drive it long and you drive it straight, you're going to have a massive advantage over most other players. And then Portrush is going to be one where that'd probably be the hardest one of the next 3 for him to win because of the pressure of being home. But I do think this is going to take sort of a burden off of him. When Phil Mickelson finally broke through, I think he was a year younger when he won his first major, when he won the Masters, Bob, that Rory is right now. Mm-hmm. And then he won several more. So I think you could see a major run by Rory, pun intended here. I will say that I thought, and I can't, I can say I went back and watched the '86 Masters on YouTube because they put all that stuff out there. I can only imagine what it was like to watch Nicklaus charging when coverage was a lot more limited, and you go, oh my God, he did it again. I thought for 4 days the Masters delivered storylines, great rounds, great golf, and a lot of drama, and that's all you can ask for. It's certainly the best I can remember because I didn't really watch a ton of the 2019 one with Tiger. And as I think you know, Bob, I'm not really a Tiger guy, so that one, I was rooting for Brooks Koepka in that Masters, so that didn't exactly have the same luster for me that it did for everybody else. All
right, we're due for a break. We'd like to hear from you out there on the Masters, the Pirates. The Steelers brought in another quarterback. We'll talk about their draft situation coming up. It's 412-575-2600. That puts you in touch with us right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, KDKA+. All right, this is our Xfinity Mobile tweet of the night from Sarah Langs, who covers Major League Baseball. Henry Davis and Paul Skeens are the first ever battery of #1 overall draft picks. And that happened because Rodriguez went out with an injury. He has a laceration on his index finger. He looks like he might have to go to the injured list, so could open up some playing time because Bart's still out, although he's going through a rehab, as will be Triolo. They do have a lot of injuries, but I'd like to see Henry Davis a lot more. At this point, I don't know about you, Chris, but let him play, see what we got.
Sarah Langs obviously is tracking all sorts of the minutia, and she's very good at what she does, and so that tweet's right up her alley to have that from the research department and do that digging. But I don't know, Bob, when you look at that tweet, doesn't it frustrate you because only one of those two #1 picks has actually lived up to the hype and then some, and the other guy, as great as Skeens has been on one end of the spectrum, here's Henry Davis like making sure that the scales are balanced or something by being one of the most disappointing #1 overall picks I can remember. I want to see him some more only because then I think if you got like an extended look at him, you'd know if he was actually a major league player or not. And unfortunately right now, the arrow is pointing in the wrong direction on that particular front.
Yeah, but I want to see. Give him a shot at this point. With all these injuries, why not? It's his opportunity. Let's go to the phone lines, Chris. We got a lot of people want to talk, beginning with Patrick in Franklin. It's our #1 Cochrane Go One Better caller of the night. Patrick, how are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for taking my call. At the end of the Masters here, my thought was the viewership and the number of people attending, that maybe this was finally the end of them thinking they have to have Tiger to bring in the people.
I think Tiger always is an attraction, no matter what he does. Good, bad, indifferent. He's a push-pull kind of factor. There are a lot of people who don't want to see him. A lot of people love to see him. I think, the fact is he's not going to play again, at least not to that level, given all the stuff he's gone through. So, I wonder about him on the senior tour. When they get to that point, he's closing in on that, Chris. Do you think he'd play a lot of those kind of events if he can? You can use a golf cart in those.
I was going to say that's the key there. You can use a golf cart in those events, and I don't know if pride would prevent him from wanting to do that. He said, if I can't walk and play the way I'm supposed to play, then I'm not going to. But if Tiger Woods was allowed to use a cart, I think he would goose Champions Tour viewership big time. Those events would become must-see TV. I'll be honest, I know you might roll your eyes at this. You might think this is Chris throwing out a hot take, Bob, a grumpy Chris doing his taxes before he came here on a Monday night.
Why so late?
Bob, when you don't have so many offshore, accounts and holdings like Richie Walsh does, you can afford to wait to the last minute. They tell you 90 minutes, pal, you're in, you're out. You don't have that much going on. No, but I mean, here's a thought I've had in probably the last year plus. I'm surprised that the tour, the actual PGA Tour, hasn't decided to kind of wink and amend its rules and let Tiger play in these tournaments with a cart. I'm sure there'd be an outcry from fellow pros, but they're so desperate for him to be a factor anytime he tees it up. That's the only way he's ever going to be able to do it. Now, I don't think his game is at a point anymore where he could be a factor truly, but I know he can't if he's got to walk these courses. On the Champions Tour, I think he'll win. I do think he'll win because he'll be long enough. You don't have to hit it 320 on that tour, although some of those guys do. And people will watch if he chooses to play a competitive schedule there.
Yeah, but I don't think he would ever allow himself to take a cart in a regular tour event. He just won't do it. And I don't blame him. That's something he's always talked against, and I don't see him changing that position. We have a lot of tweets here, and this is regarding Kyle McCord, who was brought here today by the Steelers for an interview, and that's our question of the night, and you can check that out. should the Steelers gamble on a second-day pick if it involved Kyle McCourt? Syracuse, he set some ACC passing records. We have this from Jamar on Twitter. He says Steelers should stay away from quarterbacks, period, this year. Wait till next. And then we have Honest Abe on Twitter who says, stay away from Shadur Sanders. All these quarterbacks that are coming to play, you can see the poll now is up, KDKA.com/connect. And should they take a chance on McCourt on day 2, or if not day 3? 67% said yes. To me, I don't think you're going to get a franchise quarterback out of this batch. I would wait till next year and try to satisfy other needs. What would you do this year?
The only player I would consider taking right now of that bunch in like the later rounds, if he's around, and I don't think he will be because he's gotten an invite to the green room, is Milroe. Like, if I could get Milroe at 83, I would at least consider it. We had Mike Renner on from CBS Sports, Bob, one of their draft gurus, and he had an interesting take on Milroe. He said he has a pretty high floor, as unpolished as he is as a passer, because the running ability is truly off the charts dynamic, like probably the best pure runner at the position since Lamar came into the league. And so when you consider that, and then you figure, and then he said this is the wild part, he said, if you try him out at quarterback and he really just does not pick up the nuances of the position at the pro level, and like it's clear that he can't hack it from a throwing perspective, he said he's a gifted enough runner and a physical enough body type that he could be your starting running back and add real value that way. So think about that. He wasn't kidding either. He was being, as far as I could tell, not facetious in the slightest, because the guy's 220 pounds. He is a tank, and so he's the only one I would consider. The rest of these guys are just, I don't know, they're just guys in a pretty weak class.
Right. Milroe did have 20 touchdowns on the ground last year, so he can certainly do that. But again, it's the nuances, all the stuff that goes into making a pocket presence very big in the NFL. We'll see if he has that. But again, I think I would probably stay away for now. But they brought these guys in. They're doing their due diligence. I don't know what you make of it, other than we'll see if there's somebody out there in rounds 4, 5, whatever, they may do it. Let's go back to the lines because we have Paul in Saltsburg who joins us right now. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Okay, Bob. My question is, why are we putting up with this Aaron Rodgers business when we, first of all he does is create havoc no matter where he goes. So he's going to create problems for the Steelers. And my other thing is, why would you not go away from these great defensive ball players when we got a chance to get them and waste a round on a quarterback that's not going to be with us next year?
Well, I mean, because they backed themselves into a corner. And again, if you follow the Steelers, you know that they're not just going to use a year as sort of a bridge to another year. They just don't do that. They feel they can be competitive if they have a quarterback who's good at doing what he does. And Aaron Rodgers, if he is able to be protected, I still think can sling it around. But really, they don't have any other choice here, the way things have worked out, unless they go with Mason Rudolph, Chris.
Well, they're not going to do that because if they really believed in Mason Rudolph, Mike Tomlin can, give us the empty platitudes about how much he believes in him all he wants. They'd have paid him like something other than a regular run-of-the-mill backup. I think there's a flaw in their thinking that they can compete every year as long as they have a quarterback. It's why they continue, and I think this is somewhat Tomlin-driven, if not exclusively Tomlin and maybe Rooney-driven. That's why they continue to try to find these patch solutions. I do think Omar Khan speaks publicly with an awareness that they need to find a long-term guy at the position. But to answer Paul's other sort of complaint there, why would they pass on all these great defensive linemen and some really good cornerbacks and maybe take a quarterback? Because it is the most important position in football and the most important and outsized importance position in all of professional sports. I mean, you can see how well you can construct a team and how little it can matter if that team doesn't have a quarterback. That's why the Steelers might take a swing.
Yeah, they could, but it better be the right swing, because if you swing and miss, then you have to redo the whole situation over again. Bob in Beachview joins us right now on the hotline here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Bob. The storyline for a long time was that wasn't spending any money, so the team wasn't going to go anywhere. And all of a sudden, I hear your partner there tonight saying that he's been thinking about getting a good manager somewhere. Where's this tree that he can pick them off of?
Well, first of all, if they make a managerial change, I think that's a very interesting question. What do you do with that? Does it change anything if nothing else changes? And again, you can tell me all you want about Derek Shelton, because I do think he has flaws, and I think especially in some of the bullpen maneuvers he's made over the years have cost them. And you can say, well, his hitting is not good. He's a hitting instructor by nature. But at the same time, he doesn't have a lot to work with. And if you brought in another manager, if the other stuff doesn't change, Chris, how does the manager make that big of an impact?
I'd just like to point out to, what was it, Bob and beat you there? It's Mr. your partner over there when you're referring to me like that. Mr. your partner over there. I mean, why do I say fire Shelton? Because I don't think he's any good. I don't think Bob Nutting is spending enough money on this team. He said he thinks he's done all he can to give them the resources they need to succeed. I completely disagree. But if he had let these two go, the general manager and the manager, after last year, he could have made a run at Terry Francona, who, by the way, would not work with Ben Cherington because they have a bad history from their time in Boston together. But if the owner of the team had listened to what I think was his gut instinct and cleaned house, he could have had a much more inspiring manager on the field, a guy who knows his way around and knows how to work with small market teams, and then he could have hired a new general manager. Like, I will say, like, two things can be true and are true. The Pirates have a very deficient roster, and their manager, even with what they do have, doesn't know how to use it properly.
We're due for a break. We'll take it right now. 412-575-2600 is the number to call right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Ken Rice is manning the anchor desk tonight for KDKA News at 11 o'clock. Ken?
Bob, we're digging deeper into the criminal history of the man accused of firebombing Governor Shapiro's mansion. Plus, Ray Petlin tracking a roller coaster kind of week. And Pirates owner Bob Nutting apologizing now over the Bucco bricks. All coming up next on KDKA at 11, Bob.
All right, thanks very much, Ken. Penguins are going to be out of the playoffs. Chris, I don't know about you, but this is 3 years in a row I'm going to miss them badly. I love watching those best of seven, especially this time of the year. Not much else is going on. But real quick, they're about to go into this. Winnipeg gets the President's Trophy. Washington will be the best record in the East, but I see them as a first-round potential ouster. I don't like the way they're playing. I think their goaltending is subjective at this point, and depending on what you get on a nightly basis. They're not playing good hockey right now. This reminds me of when Tampa got jumped by Columbus a few years ago. What do you think about Washington and how far they can go?
I think they're one of those. I think you make an interesting point about they're not playing well. They know they're going to be in, so I think it's hard to stay maybe somewhat motivated. I do think if they make it past the first round, then there's a chance that they go all the way to the final. How about Tampa as your cup champ? How about that for a wild pick?
Jake Guentzel wins another cup. It could very well be. All right, them against Dallas. That's the way I see it. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. We'll do it again tomorrow night with you at 10:35 right here on KDKA+.